Okay, now when dealing with the chimney, I'm going to use mash again, but I want to take a slightly different approach this time. I do want it to be a little bit more orderly, sort of like on a grid. I'm going to use the same bricks, but I just want to take a slightly different approach so I can kind of show you guys different ways to do things. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to distribute my bricks along a grid. So or along my mesh using faces as how I distribute them. Hopefully, this will begin to make a lot more sense once I do it. But in order to do that, I'm going to need a mesh that is much more uniform for grid. So basically, I'm basically going to, for example, take let me just show you really quickly here. We'll take a plane. And we'll go ahead and take my brick one and make a mesh network out of that. We'll go to distribution type, change that to mesh. And then I'm just going to take this plane and throw it into that input mesh. And what you'll see here is that if I set this to face center, I'll get basically a brick in every face center, right? So it's a great way to distribute things in a very even fashion along a mesh. So basically what I want to do is build a chimney where the faces are all about the size of the bricks there. Now they don't need to be perfect, but I want to get them about the size of a brick. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete this stuff, delete the plane, delete, make sure I have everything cleaned up here. And I'm going to make a new chimney. And what I'm going to do is start with a plane. That's a cube. I want to start with a plane. And I'm going to rotate that about, we'll do negative 90, or no, is that right? 90. Yeah, there we go. Negative 90. And I want to get this to be roughly the size of our chimney here. And again, hopefully this will, if you just kind of want to sit back and watch me now, hopefully this will begin to make a little bit more sense once we get started. So I'm not going to go all the way up to the top because I think I'm going to sort of customize the top a little bit. But we want to get this about the size that we're looking for our chimney. And I'm just going to unhide one of my bricks for now and just bring it over to the wall here. And now what I'm looking for, I'm going to go into the channel box and I'm just going to manipulate the divisions to try to get polygons, all uniform polygons that are about the size of that brick, maybe a little bigger because I do want them to have a little bit of space in between them. So yeah, I'm just going to go through and manipulate my divisions in width. So to do this, I'm just clicking here and then middle mouse clicking in my grid. So about the height and width, again, a little bigger. I do want them to have a little bit of space. So I think 50 is probably good there. And then my division and height, I'm going to bump that down quite a bit. So maybe something like, if you can't get it right, I'll show you another little trick that we can do here. So say I don't, say for example, 5 is too much. 6 is not enough, or 6 is still a little too much, and then 7 is too little. So what I'll do is I'm just going to go up to 8 in this case, and then I'll just take my entire object here and widen it until I'm at about the size that I'm looking for. So something about there. And then I can just sort of delete this this part of it that I don't want, this part that's kind of sticking out a little bit. I can just go into face mode and delete all of those faces. And then basically what I want to do here now is just delete, I want to try to get the shape of everything. I'm, basically just trying to get the shape of a chimney now. So I'm going to delete these two on each side. And then I'm actually going to delete these 3 and try to make it a little asymmetrical. And then if I want to kind of zigzag it up a little bit, I'm just going to go through and kind of zigzag. Don't want to do it too much. I don't want to get it too crazy. In fact, I think this might be a little bit too much of a curve. But, I'm just trying to add some stylistic elements to this so it doesn't quite seem too boring. I want it to have some zigzags to it. Maybe we'll do another little zigzag this way. So maybe something along the lines of that. And then I'm going to take this whole thing here and extrude it. So we can just do that with our shift. Actually, no, we need to select it in face mode if we want to extrude. And then we can just extrude it out. And again, I want this to be about the size of maybe 2 of those bricks. And that way we can just add a multi-cut tool right down the center. And then it's about the size of 2 of those bricks. So we can just double check here. Yeah, that's pretty close. That's about what I'm looking for there. Now this brick, because we are going to use this, I'm just going to zero out its transforms and hide it again. And then I'm going to go ahead and delete that old chimney that we had there, and I'm going to install the new one. Now, a lot of this stuff we're not going to see, so I'm going to try to get rid of any of those behind faces that we're not going to see. We can really easily do that just by going into face mode and sort of just selecting everything like that, and then control deselecting those other ones. So then we can get just those faces selected, and I can just hit delete, and we'll go ahead and delete those bottom faces too. We're not going to see those. And then I'll just move my chimney back into position there. So now we have very evenly distributed geometry. So when we use our mesh and we sort of apply those bricks to that geometry, they'll be very evenly distributed along each one of those faces. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead, select my chimney here, and we will delete its history, freeze its transforms. I do want to delete these top faces while I see them. And go ahead, delete history again. All right, so now we can create our mesh. So I'm just going to do brick 1, create a mesh network. We'll go over to our attribute editor, change my distribution type to mesh, and then go ahead and put my new chimney mesh, which is this guy. So I'm going to name this chimney. And we're just going to middle mouse drag that into our input mesh. All right, so I want to turn off calculate rotation. That way they're all straight. And I'm going to change my method from vertex to face center. I want to change my push along normal a little bit. So we want that to be in the negative. So they're kind of in a little bit like that. And then we can just begin increasing our numbers here. So a really easy way to do this to know like the exact number that you need here is we can go into our we can go into display, heads up display, and object details. That's not the one we want, but it's good to have that one up there anyway. We want display, heads up display, poly count. And if I look at faces, I can see that this chimney has 458 faces on it. So if I go into my mesh node and increase this number of points to 458, we should get the exact number that we want there. Now I may need to add a couple bricks manually to these top parts so it looks a little bit nicer. But overall, I think this is kind of the look that I'm going for. Now I can go into my mesh node. I'm going to add my ID node so I can get multiple bricks there. And we'll set this one to random. I want my ID count to be 5 because we have 5 bricks. And then jump over to my repro node and add in my other bricks. Again, just middle mouse clicking and dragging them in there like that. So that's looking pretty good there. I do want to randomize them a little bit, so I'm going to add a random node. Let's get in close here so we can actually see what's going on. Definitely do a random position X. Little bit of random position Y, a tiny bit of rotation, and definitely a tiny bit of random scales too. So basically something like that. I do want them to look random, but I want it to look a little bit organized too. So they're all kind of in a straight line here. So it looks like, you know, kind of the chimney was built first. And then they built the house around the chimney. I believe that's usually how most houses like this are built. With these stone chimneys like this. Now, just jumping back into distribute, I could, instead of doing face center, I could do something like vertex. And that will give me a slightly different sort of organization to it. I actually kind of like that better, with the exception of, you know, this being all barren. But I think I may just need to increase my numbers here, because we do have more vertices than faces, right? So if we look at our verts, we have 514, not 458. So if I jump up here back into my mesh and go to my distribute and add 518, we should get that filled in. So I think I actually like the vertex center a little bit better. We can go into our random and we can change the seed a little bit if we want a slightly different setup. And, you know, again, I can sort of change these a little bit. So some stick out further than others. I don't want to mess too much with the rotation because that just makes things go all sort of cattywampus on us. So very little rotation. And then with the scale, I think maybe we'll do uniform scale. That way they all sort of scale uniformly. And I'll look a little bit different. And you know, our everything's still editable. So like say these two guys on the side are just a little bit too close together here. I could probably just get away with just scaling my chimney out a little bit and it'll actually spread those guys apart a little bit more. I could probably even just move it out quite a bit more. But I think I'm going to leave it sort of stuck in there like that. And I'll probably end up grabbing this little cluster and moving that in a little bit manually. But yeah, this is kind of the look that I'm going here for the chimney. So same bricks, but just a little bit more organized. They're like stacked up instead of just kind of all random like it is around the house. So from here, we can make them where they're not a mesh object anymore. So to do that, I'm going to delete the history on that object, and then I can just delete my mesh. Then I can select this. I'm going to go to mesh, separate, give that a second. I'm going to go, while I have them selected, I'm going to go ahead and center all of their pivots, delete their history, freeze transforms, and then I can just name this group to chimney bricks. All right, now if I want to, like, say, grab these guys, move them in a little bit like that, I can. And any of the other ones I can kind of eyeball and move around a little bit. Now, one thing I don't like, and this will be the last thing I do in this segment, is I don't really like the hard, sharp edges that are exposed on the house and on the chimney. So you can barely see them on the chimney, but I don't want those to be just like a hard, sharp edge all the way around. So I'm going to go through and just bevel all of those edges. So I'll start with the house here. So I'm just going to grab each sort of edge here just by double clicking them, just each corner of the house. So it's only going to be 6, I believe. So 1 for the main part of the house, and then, or 4 for the main part of the house, and 2 for the outer part of the house. And then I'm just going to use my bevel function. And I want there to be quite a few segments here because I want that to look nice and round but I can drop the fraction a tad, so it's not quite so sharp. So now if I turn off my wireframe, now I have like a nice round corner on all sides of my house, and it's not that sharp edge. And I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing for the chimney here. If I can manage to select it. Even though the chimney isn't as visible, or the corners aren't as visible, I'm just going to do these two. I'm not going to worry about these other guys a little bit. I'll probably edit these bricks some so they're not, so this part of the chimney isn't exposed quite so much. But yeah, we'll just go ahead and bevel those a little bit. And I'm just going to leave it at its default fraction and just increase the segments so it looks a little bit more round going all the way up. And again, it's all about the little touches to detail like this that really makes a project like this sort of sing or look great, you know, kind of. It's all these little details that make something look a lot more, I guess, I hate the word premium or using the word premium, but it's higher quality. Let's go with that. So all these little attentions to detail will definitely make the quality of your work look much higher. And let's go ahead and we'll do the top of our chimney here. So to do this, I'm just going to take one of our normal little bricks and we'll duplicate it a couple times. And I'm going to make it a little bit larger. And we can rotate it a little bit so it's not looking like the same identical brick. So we can just do something like that. I'm actually going to take this whole group, move that down a little bit, and then I'm going to duplicate it and just move that down and maybe just shrink them down a little bit to make them a little bit smaller, fit in that space. Again, all these little stylistic elements like this just add a ton of quality-wise to your work. And then maybe we do this one as a double stack. Let's group it together, center the pivot, rotate it. scale that in a tad. So we got something like that. So I think that looks pretty good chimney wise. I'd say we're almost done with the main bulk of our house. We just have to do the doors and the windows. We'll do a line of shingles up top here to sort of hide this exposed area. But for the most part, this is looking great. I'm excited to get done with the house section so we can start working on shading it and filling out the environment around the house.